Olá! O Ministério Público de Minas Gerais realiza a 5ª edição da Clínica de Justiça Criminal, um dos principais programas internacionais de capacitação que são promovidos pela Secretaria de Assuntos Internacionais em parceria com o CEAF, que é a Escola Institucional do MPMG. Essa iniciativa reúne especialistas brasileiros e norte-americanos para discutir temas centrais do direito penal comparado e do sistema de justiça criminal dos Estados Unidos, especialmente as técnicas de atuação no Tribunal do Júri. A nossa convidada de hoje no TV MP Entrevista é a professora Roberta Kemp Flowers, da Faculdade de Direito da Universidade de Stetson, reconhecida internacionalmente por sua experiência na formação prática de advogados e promotores e pelo treinamento de equipes campeãs nacionais de julgamento simulado. Professor Flowers, thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us.
I'm honored to be here.
It's good to talk to you. First, I'm gonna ask, for those who doesn't know the American legal system, what are the main characteristics, especially in criminal jury trials?
I think one of the things that's very interesting about the United States' criminal justice system, that it is very different from state to state. So we have basically 52 different criminal justice systems. We have our federal system, we have each one of the 50 states has their own criminal justice system, and then the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. has its own criminal justice system. But across all of those systems, even though they may differ in their procedure, is that really the core for criminal justice is the Constitution and particularly the Bill of Rights. So it's very important to us that we are, no matter which system that we have in place, due process, right? That there is a process by which the citizens can look and say, okay, here are the crimes, here's what I need to not do, and here's what I can expect from my system of justice if I am in fact accused of a crime.
So they combine the Constitution and the state
Yes,
laws.
Exactly. So in the United States, the federal Constitution, no state can give criminal defendants less rights than the the Bill of Rights in the federal Constitution. Now, states can give defendants more rights, they can increase their rights, but they can't decrease their rights. So that is kind of the bottom line, that all criminal defendants are going to have certain rights in the United States, regardless of which state system they're a part of. From there, from that floor, the states can increase the protections for criminal defendants, but cannot decrease them.
Trial advocacy is one of your areas of expertise.
Yes.
Why is practical courtroom training so important for prosecutors and lawyers?
Absolutely. At Stetson, we are very proud of the fact that we train people to be lawyers, not just to think like a lawyer, but to actually act like a lawyer. And so we spend a lot of time teaching our students how to advocate, how to, regardless of whether they're in the boardroom or in the courtroom, they know how to advocate for their client. They know how to persuade people to their client's side. And so that's very important, because from a United States perspective, that is what lawyers do. Lawyers advocate for people that don't have the ability to advocate for themselves. So we really want to teach our students to be able to speak in a way that can advocate, to write in a way that can advocate, can persuade people to what their client needs.
You have coached award-winning trial teams for many years,
Yes.
Isn't it? What are the most common mistakes lawyers do before or during the jury trial?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things for a lot of lawyers is to get out of being a lawyer and be a person. So that, you've learned all these kind of special legal terms that make sense to all of us in the profession, but don't make any sense to a juror that's a nurse or a CPA. And so to be able to actually speak to citizens in a way that they can understand, make the law understandable for them, make the evidence understandable for them is a really important skill that takes training and learning, and then sometimes unlearning, right? Because we've taught you all these words, but now we don't want you to use those words. We want you to use common sense words, words that make sense to the citizens that you're trying to speak to.
You teach and try to learn simple language that we are using now here in Brazil.
Exactly. We very much want our lawyers to be able to not just speak to jurors, but to also speak to their clients. Because if I can't explain to you, my client, what I am doing for you, what that's going to mean. I've worked in elder law for many years, which is basically representing people that are over 65, and trying to explain to them, okay, what does your will say? What does this trust say? So that they can understand that I am doing for them what they want to have done when they no longer are on this earth. So not only being able to talk to jurors in a way, but even more importantly, to talk to clients in a way that they can really understand what we're doing. If you've ever been to a doctor and the doctor is saying all of these big words and you're just like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's wrong with me and I have no idea what you're going to do to help me. We don't want lawyers to do the same thing. We want lawyers to be able to talk to their clients and really explain to them so that the client really can make good decisions for themselves.
What makes an opening statement and closing argument truly persuasive to a jury? What we see in the movies.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we are discovering a lot in the psychological and sociological world is that storytelling is the most persuasive way for people to receive information. If I tell you a story, that's going to resonate with you. That's going to make sense to you. That much more so than if I told you what the law was or I told you what the evidence was, but I didn't tell it to you as a full story. So I think one of the things that we're seeing in the United States is that with all of our jury studies, and we do a lot of studies on jurors, the psychology of how jurors take in information and then how they deliberate with other jurors. And we're discovering more and more that storytelling is really the way to convey that information to a jury much better than just kind of laying out the evidence. So, for example, instead of saying, well, this witness is going to tell you this, and this witness is going to tell you that, and this witness is going to tell you that, telling that as a story of what happened. It was late at night. Right now I have a picture, oh, it's late at night, and she walked out of her apartment, not knowing that behind the door was somebody waiting for her, not waiting to be nice, but waiting to attack her, right? I'm taking in that information much differently than if I was told it by what witness is going to say. So we're discovering that more and more.
Can we say the best narrative wins besides evidence?
I would never go that far because I teach evidence, so I think it's really important. I think what's important is to be able to tell a story that the evidence is going to show. Jurors especially are not happy if you tell them a story and then they listen to all the evidence and there's no evidence of that story. And now, A, they don't believe the story, and more importantly, they don't believe you. And one of the things that we've discovered is that once a jury loses their trust in one of the two lawyers, that lawyer is not going to win the case regardless of what evidence they have. And so that very important ability to keep their trust. I'll tell a story of myself. I tried a case many years ago. It was an arson case. And the defendant took the witness stand, which in America, defendants don't very often actually take the witness stand. It's very dangerous for them when they take the witness stand. Anyway, he took the witness stand, and I cross-examined him, what I thought was a really good cross-examination. Well, they acquitted the guy. And in America, we talk to the jurors afterwards, so we can learn. And the jurors looked at me and they said, you were so nice to us in jury selection and so mean to the defendant. Now I'm like, yeah, because he was an arsonist. Of course I was mean to him. But they couldn't trust me now, right? They couldn't trust that I was Bobby Flowers here in jury selection and a different Bobby Flowers when I was cross-examining the defendant. So I lost their trust and I lost the case. And so that trust factor is really important. So that's why the story has to match the actual evidence.
Brazil and the United States have different legal traditions. What lessons can legal professionals from both countries learn from each other?
So it's very interesting. One of the things that in the American justice system is we have very few criminal trials. Most of our cases go to plea bargaining. And plea bargaining has its good and it's bad and it's ugly. The good is that we're able to resolve cases in a much faster way so that people get on with their lives, right? And there's also some justice in there, because if I'm the prosecutor and I see this person just really made a mistake, yeah, they committed a crime, but they made a mistake, I can do something to help them. I think Brazil could learn from that. Brazil does not have a negotiation part of their criminal justice system. They don't have plea bargaining. And I think that if they could discover that plea bargaining can be done in a way that really does provide for justice and also efficiency, that would help them have fewer trials. I think the thing that we as prosecutors coming to Brazil can learn is that we don't need 4 and 5 and 6 day trials. We could do it much more concisely. And I think that the prosecutors here, because they've had to, are much better at being concise, efficient. So I think that that's like a skill that we could each one look at differently. I do think that we have jury trials for everything from driving drunk to murder, right? So we have jury trials for anything if you're facing more than a year in jail. And I think that jury trials include the citizens in the decision making, and I think that's a really important part of the system. Now you could argue, do they really know very much? But I think that that's an important thing that we could, that I would love for Brazil to look at, maybe having some additional involvement on the criminal side with lay people helping to make the decisions, because then they get invested in that system.
Artificial intelligence and digital evidence are changing the legal profession.
Absolutely.
How are they affecting courtroom advocacy and legal education in the United States?
Yes. Conversation all the time. Like, I probably don't have a day at the academy that we're not talking about artificial intelligence. Because as all tools, it has really good uses and it has very bad shortcuts. And so with our law students, we want them to learn how to do the hard work of analysis, of looking at facts and looking at law and how do we situate those two together without using artificial intelligence. On the other hand, the lawyers are going to expect that our law students will come out with some mastery of artificial intelligence. So really trying to help them see it as a tool, but not as the end product, right? So that they may have, it help them, organize something, but then they've got to really do the hard work of the analysis. I think the same thing is happening in the jury world. I think our litigators, our trial lawyers are starting to use AI, but they're having to be very careful because we don't want AI to distort the evidence. So using AI to maybe do a recreation of something that happened, we have to be very careful that it's not making up stuff. We call it hallucination, but it's just basically making it up, right? And so that they're not taking what happened and making it just a little bit different using AI and making it more effective for one side or the other. So I think we're looking at AI, again, as this tool. How do we use it, right? It's very good at, here's all the facts. Give me some ideas of how I might organize it. AI is a great organizational tool. AI is a great tool to collect information, jury selection for one thing, right? Collect all the information about these different people and kind of tell me what things I might ask them in jury selection. But it always has to come back to the human being, and that's our concern in law school, that we make sure that the human beings know how to use it before they start using it.
Are you afraid that this kind of technology can mess up with justice?
Oh, I absolutely believe it can. And I think the scariest part is when it starts creating evidence that didn't actually exist. And so,
have you seen this already?
oh yes, we've had a
Yeah.
couple of cases already where, you know, here was the traffic accident, but once AI got it, it showed it from a different angle and distorted who was where, and the case got dismissed. So I think we're really seeing, you know, and it's always, you know, the good people are going to use it right. The not so good people, the evil people, the, you know, maybe unprofessional people may try to use it wrongly. And so we've got to be very careful, and judges are very skeptical and want to know whenever AI is being used, especially on evidence itself. You know, we blow up, I mean, like, I might have a picture this big and I might blow it up this big, but the court is always familiar with, does that distort somehow what the jury is seeing? You know, if I've got a map and I blow it up this big and now it looks like it's a long distance between different locations, well, that distorts how close things were. So judges are very skeptical about the use of AI, especially in the world of the evidence itself, the actual physical evidence. But again, I think that it has some uses if we see it as a tool not to distort, but to make more clear. And so that's kind of the fine line we're going to have to teach.
What message would you like to leave to the prosecutors and legal professionals participating in this criminal justice clinic?
I have to tell you, one of the things I love about Brazilian prosecutors is that if I decide to be a prosecutor, I'm deciding to make a career out of that, right? That I am thinking I'm going to do it, maybe even till I retire. In the American system, our prosecutors are much more a training ground. So a lot of times a student will come right out of law school, go to the prosecutor's office, be there 3 years, and then leave. So we end up with a lot of turnover and retraining. I would love if we, in the United States, could convince more of our young talent to really committing to a lifetime of prosecution. I said to a group of them yesterday that I was introduced to, you know, you're doing God's work, right? As far as I'm concerned, you're really on the right side. And so to get people like the Brazilian system has that want to do this forever and become better and better and better and better at it, would love for that to take root in the United States. Not sure it ever will, right? So that's one thing we take from the Brazilian system and we go back, and I keep talking to my prosecutors' offices about how can we get more career prosecutors, because that's where you get prosecutors who learn how to deal with children who have been traumatized, right? Like a brand new prosecutor doesn't know how to deal with a child that's been traumatized, but they can learn that skill. But if they don't stay long enough, we don't get that skill. So that's one of the things I just love. I love talking about jury trials. I think jury trials are so much fun to do. It's a roller coaster ride, right? You're having great days as a jury and bad days, and you're good witnesses and bad witnesses. So I think jury trials are just a lot of fun. So I'd love to kind of instill that in the Brazilian prosecutors. I think they already feel that way. They just wish they could do more of them.
Bobby, if I can call you like
Absolutely.
this, as she called herself.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Professor,
So
for
much
being
enjoyed
here
it.
with us.
Thank
and
you.
have a good event.
I will. Thank you.
E obrigada a você que está nos assistindo. Compartilhe nossos programas. Por favor, curta e compartilhe os nossos programas que estão na nossa playlist. E acompanhe sempre as notícias do Ministério Público de Minas pelo nosso site, pelas redes sociais. Até o próximo programa.